They are an organization in support of capitalism and free markets and freedom in general. And they're fairly critical of government, which is pretty easy to do. And to a large extent, that means they're critical of Republicans because we're basically in charge of government. So all the bad things that happened, in South Carolina, many of the bad things that happened in South Carolina are the result of policies, if not created, at least maintained by Republicans for quite a while. So with that being said, I'm recognizing her to come and address us and tell us what the Policy Council does and what their goals are for the next legislative session. And then we can have a discussion after she's done. Thank you. Ms. Landess.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Hi. You know, I must say, I am used to being controversial. I wasn't always. 2.5 years ago, I took over the Policy Council as the president. And up until then, and I think a lot of you know me and have for a long time, and you know the Policy Council, 23-year-old organization, 24 actually. I know one of my staff folks, Jamie Schuster. Jamie's been with the Policy Council now for a little over 2 years as well. And I understand, and I guess I want to say this, I understand why some of you have some questions about what we're doing. And I am more than happy to talk about it. So tonight, what I decided to do is come across the river and have a conversation with you guys about why the Policy Council has taken some of the stands we have, what we're talking about, why we're out there, and I will answer any questions that you all have about our work, about anything that we're doing at our organization. Now, you know, you heard Rich say we're for capitalism and the free market. That's right. The organization was founded by Tom Rowe. I don't know if that name rings a bell to some of you, but I bet it does. Tom was a businessman in Greenville, and he was a member of Ronald Reagan's kitchen cabinet. His son-in-law is on our board of directors today, Thomas Wilcox from Greenville. And Tom Rowe was told by Ronald Reagan, and I imagine if Ronald Reagan told me to do something, I would. In fact, still today, when I read anything Ronald Reagan's written, my inclination is, okay, what he said. Because he said everything so well. And he said to Tom, take the vision of the Heritage Foundation. There is no voice in the states representing the interest of business, the interest of individuals, the interest of taxpayers. The only voice coming out of government is pretty much from government. And that's what you get about government. So our mission, whether we sometimes like it or not, is to remember that we're here to promote limited government, free enterprise, individual liberty, and responsibility. And Bill Lowndes, our board member from Spartanburg, heads up Tyndall Corps, always says to me, Ashley, don't forget the responsibility after individual liberty, because that part's important. You can't have one unless people understand the other. So that is the job of the organization. And putting it down into some bare bones, some of what we've had to do is take an honest look at government, because that's our job. And in doing that, in 2008, it was pretty clear state spending is up. It just is. The budget is more, even today, even in a tight budget year, even in a year when we've been told it's been cut to shreds, spending is up. We're almost at a $21 billion budget. Now, I think for a long time we all thought that number was a little closer to 6 or 7 billion, because that's what we've been told. And a whole lot of rank and file legislators have thought the same thing. Because honestly, that budget's pretty hard for a lot of legislators to get their hands on before the debate on the floor. We were told by several legislators we didn't realize we're voting on this whole appropriations bill. And frankly, I don't blame them, because neither did we. Until I took a look at the state budget myself, I didn't understand how complicated it was. And I've been at the organization for 10 years at that point. And it just became time to make a decision. Are we going to really look at spending? Are we going to ask the tough questions? Because if we don't, who's going to? A lot of folks' job is to win elections. I understand that. Fair enough. But it has to be someone else's job to truly and objectively and independently analyze government. So we started to do that. And we found some things were lacking. Transparency, for one. I know you guys have heard a lot about that. But in 2008, when we wanted to see what the percentage of roll call voting was, Jamie Schuster called over and asked for some help in that, and she was told, well, we don't really have that information. We can't give it to you. So Jamie Schuster and some interns in our office hand counted thousands of pages of House and Senate journals to get the percentage of votes on the record taken when bills were passed by the legislature, and it was 5% of the time. And that was certainly a concern. And I know it was a concern for a lot of people in here because you said so, and we heard from you. And several leaders in the legislature also took it up as a legitimate concern, and they stood up and fought because someone had to. Because you made it clear that wasn't okay with you. Do you all remember making it clear that wasn't okay with you? Because I do. And I still don't think that's okay. I don't think there ought to be one vote our elected officials should be afraid to have on the record. Can you think of one? Can you think of one vote that you have, that they take, that you aren't entitled to know the results of? Is there one? I don't think in a free country there is, or should be. And I think it shouldn't be up to them to decide when they vote on the record, regardless of who's in charge. It's not that I don't like a lot of these guys. I do. But it is that I don't think it should be their decision. Now in 2008, on top of the roll call debate, and this is just how it went, guys, the 4 legislative leaders called a press conference, the President Pro Tem of the Senate Finance Chairman, the Speaker of the House, and the Ways and Means Chairman called a press conference to announce that they wanted to fix the economy. And they wanted to put forward their plan for fixing the economy. Well, we were all pretty interested to hear that. So we sent someone over. And someone on our staff came back with this. Can you guys see that? You see that? Here, I'm going to turn around and show it to you all too. See that? That is a pyramid. And in that pyramid, and some of you may be seeing this for the first time. Well, I saw it for the first time in August 2008. And I looked at it closer. Now again, I'm an 8th generation South Carolinian. My mom is from Barnwell. Saul Blott and Edgar Brown were at my parents' wedding. Miss Ethel Blott played the piano at my parents' wedding, and I remember her. So, you know what, folks? I want to be clear. I love this state, and I get it. And I know that a lot of these leaders, we've over the years said, well, these are our people. Now, Mr. Edgar happened to be a Democrat. You guys may remember that. Yeah. And he ran the state for a very, very long time. Right. And even a lot of folks in Barnwell, my family members, thought he did a great job. But I think the time has come to ask some questions. Now, over the last 8 years, we've had a fight about restructured government. Governor Sanford has stood up and said to others in his same party, hey, you know what? South Carolina government isn't run right. If I ever doubted that, right there, 38 government entities in here, or at least most of them are. And again, 10 years at the Policy Council, the state's think tank, supposed to be looking into this. I've never heard of most of these. And I wonder if some of you have. I wonder if some of you know. I'll tell you one of them that's in here, Innovista. Does that ring a bell? You guys know about Innovista? Mm-hmm. Well, we asked some questions about it. And I guess here it is. Don't you think we ought to be asking questions about that? Whoops, don't want to drop it. Don't you think we ought to ask questions? Don't you want us to? We have a right to know what this is. Because this is our money. This is your money. It's the money of South Carolina businesses and individuals, of taxpayers and family, in this vision for the economy that was put forward by 4 legislative leaders. Now, I do not doubt that they believe that they can and should put an economic plan together from the State House. They do genuinely believe they ought to do that. In fact, the Senate Finance Chairman said it publicly. If we let the free market work, we'd be back in the 1800s. And he said that on the front page of the state newspaper. Because he believes it. Because he believes that there needs to be a plan, and that that plan ought to come out of Columbia. And that, more than anything, is where the most fundamental disagreements have come. Because I'll tell you, I don't believe that. We don't believe that. All of these government agencies are spending your money. They're acting on behalf of you. And we want to know exactly what the rate of return is on this. And that was some of the stuff we started to ask. So we said, all right, how many jobs has it created? Nobody's told us that to date. And we asked, well, what's the rate of return? How are we doing with all of this money poured into this strange pyramid? Nobody knows. But here's what we do know. South Carolina has one of the lowest per capita incomes in the nation, and that's been true ever since I can remember. We also have one of the highest unemployment rates in South Carolina, and that's been true for a very long time, and no more so than recently. That's a fact. Now, one thing they tell us about this pyramid is it's going to create jobs and raise your income levels, right? That is what they presented when they gave you this. But it hasn't happened. And I think Ronald Reagan said it pretty well, and I'm going to read one of Ronald Reagan's quotes. He said, "The full power of centralized government, this was the very thing the Founding Fathers sought to minimize. They knew that governments don't control things. A government can't control the economy without controlling people. And they know when a government sets out to do that, it must use force and coercion to achieve its purpose. They also knew, those Founding Fathers, that outside of its legitimate functions, government does nothing as well or as economically as the private sector of the economy." Do you believe that?